Thank you to our committee leadership, and thank you, Mrs. Devos. How much information do you have about the finances of the president-elect, his family, or Trump-related organizations?
I don't have any of that information, Senator.
So I take it that you won't have any way of knowing, when asked by the president to take official action in your capacity as secretary, how those actions might affect his personal financial situation.
I'm not sure I could comment on that.
And this isn't theoretical. He owns a university. I think it's relevant to assessing the wisdom of an education policy proposal to know how that proposal might affect the president's personal finances. Do you disagree with me?
Well, I think the president-elect has taken steps to ensure.
Can I ask, do you disagree with me? Is it?
Can you state your question again?
I think it's relevant to assessing the wisdom of an education policy proposal to know how the proposal might affect the president's personal finances. Do you disagree with me?
I don't disagree with you.
Okay, thank you. The nation deserves a Secretary of Education who's a champion of kids, parents, state and local control, and outcomes. And I also think the nation deserves a Secretary who's a champion of public education. In a 2015 speech on education, you were pretty blunt, quote, "Government really sucks." And you called the public school system a, quote, "dead end." In order to clarify, you never attended a public school, K-12 school, did you?
Correct.
And your children did not either, correct?
That's correct.
And you've never taught at a K-12 public school, correct?
I've not, but I've mentored in one.
Okay. I worry about the effect of a leader who believes government sucks on the morale of the workforce. Teachers and others do better when their morale is high. Would you agree with me?
Absolutely, and I support great teachers.
And the attitude of a leader of an organization matters a lot to the morale of the workforce. Would you agree with me on that?
Absolutely, and just with reference to the quote that you
made.
I
would like to introduce that for the record. I don't have other questions about it, and I have a very limited amount of time. I want to move on to another quote. You and your husband spoke at a conference a number of years ago, and your husband said, this was not attributed to you, but you were together at the conference, if what I read is correct. The church has been displaced by the public school as the center for activity, the center of what goes on in the community. Thomas Jefferson didn't view public education as contrary to or competitive with church or religion. Do you?
I do not.
Do you think that schools that receive K-12 schools that receive government funding should meet the same accountability standards, outcome standards?
All schools that receive public funding should be accountable, yes.
Should meet the same accountability standards?
Yes, although you have different accountability standards between traditional public schools and charter schools.
But I'm really interested in this.
Okay,
should everybody be on a level playing field? So public charter or private K-12 schools, if they receive taxpayer funding, they should meet the same accountability standards.
Yes, they should be very transparent with the information, and parents should have that information first and foremost.
And if confirmed, will you insist upon that equal accountability in any K-12 school or educational program that receives federal funding, whether public charter, or private?
I support accountability.
Equal accountability for all schools that receive federal funding.
I support accountability.
Okay, is that a yes or a no?
I support accountability.
Do you not want to answer my question?
I support accountability.
Okay, let me ask you this. I think all schools that receive taxpayer funding should be equally accountable. Do you agree with me or not?
Well, they don't. They're not today.
But I think they should. Do you agree with me or not?
Well, no, because...
You don't agree with me. Let me move to my next question. Should all K-12 schools receiving governmental funding be required to meet the requirements of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act?
I think they already are.
Okay, but I'm asking you a should question, whether they are or not. We'll get into that later. Should all schools that receive taxpayer funding be required to meet the requirements of the Individuals with Disabilities in Education?
I think that is a matter that's best left to the states.
So some states might be good to kids with disabilities, and other states might not be so good, and then what, people could just move around the country if they don't like how their kids are being treated?
I think that's an issue that's best left to the states.
What about the federal requirement? It's a federal law, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Let's limit it to federal funding. If schools receive federal funding, should they be required to follow federal law, whether they're public charter, or private?
As the senator referred to...
Just yes or no. I've only got one more question.
The Florida program, there's many parents that are very happy with the program there.
Let me state this. I think all schools that receive federal funding, public charter, or private, should be required to meet the conditions of the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. Do you agree with me or not?
I think that is certainly worth discussion, and I would look forward
So
to
you cannot yet
discussing it
agree with
further.
me. And finally, should all K-12 schools receiving governmental funding be required to report the same information regarding instances of harassment, discipline, or bullying if they receive federal funding?
I think that federal funding certainly comes with strings attached.
I think all such schools should be required to report equally information about discipline, harassment, or bullying. Do you agree with me or not?
I would look forward to reviewing that provision.
If it was a court, I would say to the court, let the judge instruct the witness to answer the question. It's not a court, you're not under oath, or you're not under a subpoena, but you're trying to win my vote. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Senator Kaine. Senator Murkowski.